There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better, and some have gone, and some remain. All these places have their moments with lovers and friends. I still can recall. Some are dead and some are living, but in my life I love them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compared with you, and these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Though I know I'll never ever lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them, but in my life I've loved you more. Though I know I'll never ever lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them, but in my life I've loved you more. In my life I love you more.
I saw you in my dream. We were walking hand in hand on a white sandy beach of Hawaii. We were playing in the sun. We were having having so much fun on a white sandy beach of Hawaii. The sound of the ocean soothes my restless soul. The sound of the ocean rocks me all night long. Those hot, long summer days, lying there in the sun on a white sandy beach of Hawaii. The sound of the ocean soothes my restless soul. The sound of the ocean rocks me all night long. Oh, last night in my dreams I saw your face again. We were there in the sun on a white sandy beach. Oh, 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 Hawaii.
Keep it safe and alive. Let His breath carry it across the east side, across the T, Polynesia. I'm sailing away. I set an open course for the virgin seas, and I've got to be free, free to face the world that's ahead of me. On board I'm the captain, so climb aboard. We can search for tomorrow on every shore, and I'll try, oh Lord, I'll try to carry on. I look to the sea, reflections in the waves spark my memories. Some happy, some
Umay kaipu, okay lang, okay lang.
and I'll try, oh Lord, I'll try to carry on, to carry
So Ines, I know that you speak 5 languages. Unfortunately, the interviewer only knows one, so I'm going to conduct this interview in English. But I'm curious, what is your favorite of those 5 languages?
I don't know, either German or English. Not the other 3, that's for sure.
Okay. I mean, since German is your native tongue, most people would assume German, but it occurred to me that you've actually spoken much more English in your lifetime than German.
True. Well, it depends. If it's a scientific lecture or anything, definitely English. No question about it. Anything to do with my work, science, English. Private, it depends with whom I speak.
Yeah.
There are some of my friends who never talk German anymore, and others who always do.
Yeah.
So it depends with whom I speak.
Okay.
And also, well, what the subject matter is.
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm going to use a phrase that I learned from you, and I know it's a topic you don't like, but on the matter of organ recitals, I mean, I know I've always been amazed because you take no medication, you don't wear glasses, and I think in less than 2 weeks you're going to be 97.
Correct.
So how are you feeling these days?
I'm feeling fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm feeling fine. I'm swimming every day, as you well know, since you're swimming with me.
Right.
And I feel very good. It depends where I am. As long as the weather is nice and warm, I feel good.
Good.
If I'm cold, I don't.
So, for those of us who don't know, you were born in Vienna. Tell me, when did you leave Vienna?
Well, actually, I left in 1936, but I came back visiting until 1938. Most people think I left in 1938 because that was the time that we decided not to go back.
Okay.
Before that, I did leave in 1936 because Hans, my husband, was going to England for actually not political reasons at all,
right,
but economic reasons. And at that time, we were representing several manufacturers of knitted outerwear and dresses and bathing suits and all sorts of stuff from Vienna. So we went back several times. So the last time I was back, before the war, I mean, would have been Christmas, 37, 8.
Oh, okay.
37.
Okay.
New Year's 30, Christmas and so on. Before that.
Right, okay.
And then after the war, of course.
You know, I
56.
I know that of course, these days you return on a regular basis, and you've been doing that for a long time.
No, the first time that we did go back was actually 20 years after, namely 1958.
Okay.
And the reason was that there was a Congress of Biochemistry in Vienna in 1958. And at that time, it was the first time that I came back. Now, after my retirement probably, we have been going back every year. Before that, usually every 3 years.
Yeah. But a lot of your contemporaries weren't interested in going back. I've always been amazed that you enjoy going back to Vienna, given everything that happened.
Well, but everybody has been back at least once.
Yeah, okay.
Everybody has. Now, some of them simply don't go anymore because their health is not as good as mine. I'm fortunate that way.
Yeah.
And some just aren't particularly interested in going back.
Right.
But I like to go back.
You know, I know you do.
I don't spend much time in Vienna every year. Usually just about a week, not more than that. And I like to go to the theater, German-speaking theater, concerts, museums.
What about the food?
Yeah, well, I like that too, but that's not why I go back.
Okay.
The food, the food is really not that important to me. Yes, I do like the Vienna.
Yeah.
There are certain things that I do like.
I know.
Soldatensuppe and well, some things.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the Wiener Schnitzel, you can get that anyway. But more what you would call the desserts. The special
Kaiserschmarrn.
Wiener Mehlspeisen. Kaiserschmarrn,
Yeah.
Salzburger Nockerl, that
Yeah,
sort.
yeah. So now, okay, so you leave finally in 38. Finally, I mean, for 20 years.
Correct.
So tell me the story of how it is that you
They're
ended
in
up...
England.
Yeah, how you and Hans ended up spending the war years in
Ireland.
Ireland.
Yeah.
How did that happen? How did that come to happen?
Well, we were in England. We thought we would be, as a matter of fact, we had a very nice apartment in England, and we thought we would be living in England for the rest of our lives, essentially. At that time, we had no intention even to emigrate to the United States. We just thought we would stay in England, and it was great. Now, on the evening before war broke out, in 39,
Right.
two things happened. One was that we went to a movie on Piccadilly Circus, which was very, very close to where we actually lived, where we had our apartments at the time. And they gave a movie which was very scary, which thought Piccadilly Square being bombed, and very, very scary. And the other thing was that we were supposed to put up blackout curtains. And I am not very good at these sort of things, to put it mildly, and I really struggled with those curtains, and I never properly got them up at all. So we decided, let's go away over the weekend, and let's wait till all of this will be blown over, and then on Monday or whatever it is, we'll go back.
Right.
So we simply left with a small suitcase, not intending to come back after the weekend. While we were on the ferry boat or whatever it was, that went from England to Ireland, war broke out. So when we arrived in Ireland, we were at war.
Yeah, okay.
That is, England
Had declared
not
war.
the United States, of course,
Right.
as you know.
Right.
England at that time was at war. And then Austria had didn't exist anymore anyhow at that time.
Because so
look,
you were alien.
we had Austrian passports as long as our passports were valid.
Okay.
And since our passport, like all passports, expired, and at that time there was no Austria, there was no such country between 38 and 45. The only way to get a passport would have been I believe so in 39 our passport was probably still okay.
Okay.
But in any case, we would have had to get a German passport, which naturally had a J in it. And in any case, we didn't want a German passport, even apart from the J reason. So we were stateless. And we remained stateless, and we emigrated to the United States as stateless.
But that was down the road a piece.
Yes, until we became American citizens, way back, obviously, in 1950.
So backing up to Ireland, you in
39, we arrived in Ireland.
Right.
War had broken out.
Right.
We went to, this was Dublin at that time, of
Okay.
course. I don't remember exactly what hotel or what, it's some hotel undoubtedly we must have gone to. And we walked through the street and somehow met a couple there who lived there. And I don't know how the conversation started, but we mentioned, who we were, what we were, and so on.
Yeah.
And they suggested that we should seek the help of a then member of parliament who was Jewish and whose name was Robert Briscoe, who later became mayor. But at that time, he wasn't the mayor, but he was a member of parliament. And he did actually help us to remain in Ireland at the time.
You actually went to his office or whatever?
No, I really honestly can't.
Yeah.
I can't recall exactly where we met him.
Yeah.
It may have been wherever we were living at the time.
He came or...
I know it was in Dublin.
Yeah,
I do know that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know whether it was through him, maybe not, I'm not sure. Hans landed a job in Cork And he, namely Briscoe, helped us, made whatever arrangements had to be made so that we were allowed to stay in Ireland, which at that time became Cork simply because Hans had got a job there.
Oh, so that's how you ended up.
That's
just
why
the job.
we went from Dublin to Cork.
Gotcha.
We
Yeah.
would have stayed in Dublin if we had got a job there.
And of course, Ireland remained neutral.
Ireland
throughout.
was neutral throughout the war.
Right.
In fact,
And you could not have returned to England anyway. Because is that right?
yes, but there was a war on. We
So you had no
intention.
you had no reason.
We had
to.
no reason to
Oh, okay.
return.
Okay. Sure.
And,
Good reason not to.
well, yeah. And, well, anyway, Hans had a job.
And so, how old were you at this point? Because I know you got married at
Well,
a young age.
this was 38. Since I was born
So
in
you're
17, I was
19?
22. This was 39.
Okay, yeah. 39. So 22,
39,
21,
22.
22.
22.
Gotcha.
I was
gotcha.
22.
Yeah. Young.
Oh, of course.
So what did you do during those war years?
Well, I did several things. First of all, as far as work was concerned, I gave German and French lessons privately and also in a private school, and I also had some small group of children, all German and French. I also wrote a French grammar at that time and so on. And that is for, let's say, as a job, you might say.
Yeah.
I don't know whether right immediately, but after a short time, I went to the University College Cork, which was between the it was a joint evening classes between the university and like City College in a sense, the municipal institute on, where I went in the evening.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that we liked to go there is because it was cold. And we never had decent heating. We got these turf fires, which gave off a lot of steam, but very little heat.
Was that peat?
Peat?
Okay.
Peat.
Yeah.
Very little heat. And it was very cold.
Yeah.
Now, during the day, I spent most of the time at the library. That also was nice and warm, of course. And in the evening, I went to these evening classes. And since the classes were available at the time and so on happened to be chemistry, I began to study chemistry. And I liked it. When I was young, a child, I wasn't that interested in chemistry. I was much more interested in certain humanistic things, languages.
That's amazing. 'Cause it's almost like you fell into it.
Yeah. And then, of course, I did like it very much, but I did not originally want it. Hans, at the same time, also took evening classes and then did mechanical engineering and all sorts of things, how to operate the lathe, or whatever you pronounce it, LASTHE. Anyway.
Yeah.
And we went there in the evening. It was very good.
Yeah, that's great. No,
it was very nice.
No, let's leave that right there for a second, because you keep mentioning Hans. Let's back up for a second. How did you meet Hans? I know it was in Vienna. How did you meet him, and then at what point did you get married?
That also is a complicated
Yeah.
story. I met him first at the school dance. At that time we were 15, and our schools and several other schools in the neighborhood, let's say, we went to dancing school, and there were school dances in the evening. And at that time, I was dancing with a
And you
boy,
were like what age?
15.
Okay.
15. And, 15.
Okay.
And at that time, this happened to be the school dance of another school, a boys' school. You know, boys and girls' schools at that time were quite completely separate. Nothing was co-educational.
Right.
And this was a school that the brother of another school friend of ours, Ruthstein, her name was, and I was dancing with this brother of hers.
Uh-huh.
At which time Hans came in from a theater performance at the Burgtheater, which was, of course, it actually happened to have been a performance of Faust, where Pulli Goldstein, who was a girl who went to school
My
with
aunt.
me,
Yeah.
came there with her cousin, who was Hans.
Right.
And she wanted to dance with the boys that I was dancing with at that time. So we switched.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
other
yeah,
words,
yeah.
she gave me Hans and took away that boy. And Hans and I were dancing for a while, and then we went to, adjacent to that place where the party, the school dancers held, which happened to be at the Türkensons cafeteria in the Türkensons Park, which is still there, of course. And we went there, and the next part of the story is that we got some Chianti, and Hans immediately poured some of it over my dress and so on.
Oh.
In any case, that
Accidentally,
was
I assume.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, accidentally. Anyway, that was it, and I didn't think too much about it anymore.
Yeah.
During that summer, I went to England. First time. I was in England twice. Between the 5th and the 6th gymnasium, so 15, 16, and the 6th and the 7th. Now, this was the first time. I, with my friend Hannah Friedstein, we went...
Who's still alive?
Is still very much alive in Boston right
sure.
now.
Yeah.
Well, my father took us, as a matter of fact, to this school in England to learn English, essentially. They had some classes at school. In our school, it was not one... in our school, Latin and French were compulsory, but English was available if you wanted to in the afternoon, which we did. I also, of course, had learned a little bit of English at home.
Your parents must have been looking ahead somehow to send you to England to essentially polish your English, right?
Yeah, well, I think at that time it was a good idea to do foreign languages.
Oh, so it was a common thing?
Well, not necessarily common. You have to have a certain amount of money.
Sure.
You know, it wasn't free or anything.
Oh, no, of course.
But Hannah, who
also
was at that time my best friend anyway, and we went to, my father took us there, they went to that place in England and, spent the summer there, came back in the fall. At that time...
You still remembered Hans at this point?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
At that point,
yeah.
my friend or school friend, Pulli, said, my cousin would like to meet you again.
Aha, okay,
Now,
okay.
I had mistakenly thought that during the summer in England we had learned to play bridge. The problem was that the bridge that they taught us was a contract bridge, which nobody plays anymore, apparently, nowadays. Hans, in the meantime, unbeknownst to me, of course, had also got some inkling of bridge. His parents were avid bridge players. His parents played, I think, very good because they played a lot of bridge, but Hans didn't.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Pulli invited us to a foursome of bridge at her place. She, at that time, was sort of friendly with a boy by the name of Kurt Gruber, who had a stationery store in Vienna, and the four of us were supposed to play bridge. And both Hans and I very soon found that our bridge was not
substandard,
anything we want to continue doing. And after that, we continued to meet without bridge. And at first, for some time, we did go as a foursome with Pulli. For instance,
you mean like went out to
to concerts
or cafe or whatever,
something like that.
Yeah,
concerts. I remember, especially a concert we went to, the four of us. I think it was a Philharmonic concert in Vienna.
Yeah.
And then, after a while, we just went, the two of us. And the way we met was always sort of afternoon tea or something like that. And, well,
Very socially acceptable.
Vienna has a lot of so-called konditorei, which is like a coffee shop. But you know, at that time, young girls, like I was, 15 or something like that at the time, were not supposed to go to coffee houses at all.
Oh,
It was very
okay.
much frowned upon. But we were supposed to go to a konditorei. Now, these konditorei are essentially the same thing in a way. They still exist
But
in
the
Vienna.
cafes are
There's
more like
one.
smoke-filled rooms and a
No, they
little
are
more
for-
alcohol?
well,
or
lots, no alcohol, no.
Okay.
But many people in Vienna set up an office in a coffee house in Vienna, in a sense. In other words, they had a certain Stammtisch table where they always were sitting and where you could find them every day at certain
Like
times
conducting
of
business
day
even.
and so on. Yeah, they were there. They knew that this was their Stammcafé and that's where they were every afternoon and
Yeah,
so on.
okay.
But a young girl would never have
Oh.
done that. Now, we went to certain konditorei. There were three especially well known who are still there. One is Deme, where the Sachertorte is, where they had a big controversy about whether they or Sacher originally invented the Sachertorte, and it's still there.
Oh, so they're more
in
like,
Vienna.
are they more like bakeries or
They
more
are-
sweets?
They are sweet things.
Sweets,
You had
sweets.
coffee or tea or whatever it was, but they still exist.
Yeah.
Deme is one, and that's the one I just mentioned. I believe.
Right.
And that's on Kohlmarkt. And then there's Gerstler, which is on the Kärntner
we
Straße.
didn't go to one of those, did
We
we?
went to Lehmann, I think.
Oh, Landmann's?
No, that's a coffee house.
That's a
Landmann's
coffee house. Okay, I got you.
There are three very well known.
Okay.
And they're still there.
Yeah.
Dehme, Gerstner, and Lehmann.
Okay.
Lehmann is on, what is the Graben? Well,
Right.
it always is a Graben.
Right.
And also, for instance, if you had a party at home, you would usually order a beautiful ice cake in some special form or whatever by Lehmann was the
Yeah.
favorite, any one of those. There were others. There were several other konditoreis that we went to. These are the three best known. Actually, I don't recall at the moment, but there was another one that I went a lot to.
So then what
And
happened?
you could sit there in the afternoon. You sat there and you talked.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything terrible.
Right.
Also, we did go, and I remember that was one of the early times, afternoon tea at the Stadtpark. And they still have that too. 5 o'clock tea.
Outdoors. No?
Well,
The afternoon tea?
afternoon.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Outdoors.
Afternoon. 5 o'clock.
Yeah, yeah.
afternoon. Yeah, definitely. And I remember very well at that time, I don't know whether it was the first time that I went alone with Hans. Anyway, Polly was no longer with us, just the two of us. And I remember at that time Hans picked me up at home, and I remember what I wore. I remember all of that.
So he met your parents somewhere along
At
the
that
way?
time, he met my parents.
Aha.
At that point.
He must have been nervous.
At that point, he met my
Yeah.
parents. And he picked me up, and I remember still what I wore. And we were dancing there. We were not such wonderful dancers, but it was a nice,
Yeah, sure.
way to go.
Yeah.
It's Hübner, the same people. It is still there, the afternoon tea. And it's the same one who owns the Hotel Koblenz in...
I can see why you go back, because so much of it is
Oh,
still there, as
yes,
you put
much
it.
of it is still
Yeah,
there.
it's like going
And
down memory
the
lane.
Stadtpark is very much
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
And also at that time, Hans's parents had a shop. They sold women's dresses, which was just opposite the Stadtpark. On the ring, but opposite where they lived.
Yeah.
You would go into the Stadtpark. But that really had nothing to do, because at that time, I don't even know whether at that time I had met them or not. I don't remember exactly when I met. Obviously, somewhere along the way I met them.
But so when did he actually propose
Not that
marriage?
way,
But when?
no.
How?
He never really proposed in the sense of, going back on one knee and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. We never did such
Okay,
stuff.
okay.
After a while, however, it was, the the thing is, I knew Hans, and as you know, I never knew anybody else.
Right.
Now, I'm different from most other people my age, let's say, that my whole life I only knew one boy. Well, that's not completely true. When I was a child, there was a boy I played
So you got it
tennis
right
with.
the first time.
Yeah. I did have a boy, but with whom I played tennis, who lived in Pötzensdorf, Arabella.
In the neighborhood,
But that was when I was like 6 years old. You know, I mean, I didn't seriously think of getting married at that time. So, but Hans was definitely the only one I met as a teenager.
Yeah, right.
I didn't know anybody else.
Yeah.
Before and not after.
Oh, so you met him when you were 15 or
Not
16.
before,
But
not after.
when did you actually get married? You were how old?
Well, I was just 19.
Just 19.
Since my
So that's only
birthday is
2 or
in
3 years.
April, I was more or less like 18, because my birthday is in April and I got married in May. So I was 19 just.
So then 2 or 3
Yeah,
years.
but of course, in between, well, at first Hans was of course in Vienna.
Yeah.
And at first, well, we were meeting. We usually every Sunday we went in the Wienerwald, you know, some walk or excursion or whatever.
Yeah.
Nothing, you know, very bad. But anyway,
Yeah, the Vienna
the
Woods.
Vienna Woods.
Right,
That's right. Anyway, we went somewhere. He usually picked me up on his bicycle.
Ah,
I mean,
okay.
he came on his bicycle, then left the bicycle where I was, and also, you know. if
Then
he-
you take the tram or something?
And then we took the tram to the last stop or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or well, if we went from my house, not necessarily, because where we lived in Pötzl is already the end anyway.
So it was very romantic.
Oh, quite. We also went to the movies, quite a few movies, I
Yeah.
remember at that time. That was the time when they had the movies like Henry and the AIDS and Christina, the Greta Garbo movies
Okay,
and so
yeah.
on.
Yeah.
And we went. There was a movie house on Rotenturmstrasse, which actually belonged to an uncle of Hans, Fritz.
Oh, okay. Oh, is that right? Okay.
Well,
okay.
his wife, Philly, his wife.
His wife's family?
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah.
We
yeah.
went there. I remember that we saw the Christina of Sweden with Greta Garbo there and some other stuff. And we went to the Sweden Kino, you know, and, well, we did go to theater too.
Yeah.
And then what happened, still at that time, I don't know exactly the exact moment that we figured that it was a good idea that we wanted eventually, you know, get married and so on. But before that, Hans left Vienna for economic, not political reasons, to go to England, and he was selling various articles like knitted outerwear and dresses, well, especially dresses from the shops that his parents had at the time. And also some other things. My father was able to get him quite a few other firms to represent. There was a Czech firm with handkerchiefs, there was a bathing suit firm, there were firms making, there was one firm, Krumholz, who did blouses, and they were a very, very good seller. It was a blouse which has embroidery of alpine flowers on it and so on.
Sort of a
It was very
traditional.
good seller. Anyway, Hans went to England and did, before we were married, of
Yeah,
course,
okay,
and
yeah.
sold for his parents and for his various other people things as a manufacturer's representative.
Okay.
And this actually, he continued to do that until 38.
Yeah.
At which time he had to get other firms and what then happened, I mean, in 38, he said many of those firms that he represented suddenly came to London and, of course, came to our place there and wanted us to help them to be there because
Right.
they no longer could. Okay.
Yeah. So
You're going to stop it now, Chris?
no,
No,
hang on.
stop it.
So we're back to Cork for a minute. I'm going to
Okay,
do part
okay.
2 of this interview. We'll do
So
when you
yeah.
leave Cork, after the war, and you go to America. So we'll do that next time. Okay.
Whatever you say. Yeah.
So Ines, when we left off last time, we left you in Cork. War had broken out. We had backtracked to. I had backtracked. Gotten you to backtrack to Hans, how you met Hans, and so on. But let's put that aside for a minute. I want to ask you a question about today, here and now. When I tell people I know about your current lifestyle, they're always amazed. Tell me what it is. Tell me your lifestyle now. What your migratory patterns.
The current lifestyle is that I'm here in Hawaii more than anywhere else, namely from November to April every year. I'm in New York before and after, usually for about 5 weeks or something like that, in October to November, and again in April to May. In between, I'm in Europe. I usually go to Europe at the end of May, stay in my place in Torremolinos, Playa Mar.
In Spain.
In Spain.
Yeah.
And I stay there through June. Then in July and August, I usually go on cruises. Oh, I always go to Vienna at that time. But I usually only stay about 1 week and go to the theater and stuff like that, but I do not stay for a long time. Then I go somewhere. The last several years, once I've been with you and with
And you always see
other people.
you always see your Italian cousins.
After that.
After
not
that.
at that point.
Right.
Not
okay.
yet. Not
okay.
yet.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
yet. Unless there's a special occasion, like there was a mitzvah at one time.
Okay.
But normally I do not see them in June,
Okay.
only later. And I usually stay in Vienna for a little bit, then I stay somewhere else in Austria, usually for a week or so. And then I might, if I go on a cruise, I always invite my cousins.
Okay.
And I see my cousins on a cruise and sometimes 2 cruises. In the last several years, I usually have been taking 2 cruises. Although I think this year there'll only be 1. They're short cruises. I like river cruises and so forth. And, well, could be any, whatever. I've seen most of the things now. In Europe, I mean the cruises.
Sure.
Somewhere in Europe, I mean, some
Or
people...
the Mediterranean.
Yeah, but Europe.
Right.
I mean, not what did they want to do last year? The Mekong Delta and things like that. I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
No,
Although
my cousin wanted to
you've
do
been
that.
you've been to places.
Yeah, but I definitely did, but not on cruises.
Yeah. Okay.
Not on
okay.
cruises. The cruises are, except for an Alaska cruise that I took at one time, the cruises are always in Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do that. Then in the last several years, I did go to some place on the beach in Sestra Levante, which is on the Ligurian coast, where my cousins always spend the summer.
Okay.
And I did spend like 10 days or 2 weeks with them. Then I go back to Malaga, of course, to Torremolinos, I mean. And as I said before, I am again I didn't say it yet, no. In September, I'm always in Spain, which is actually the best time to be in Spain. The water is nice and warm, and there are a lot of fiestas. There's a Fiesta San Miguel, which is a patron saint, and it's always very, very nice. They're always in Spain, and approximately first week in October I go back to New York.
Okay. You're in New
First
York.
back in October I go back to New York about the 10th of November after Election Day, because I like to be in New York for election.
You like to vote.
I always vote.
Yeah. And then you head back to Hawaii
And
in.
Then I'm in Hawaii from November to April.
Yeah. So that's it. That's
Yeah.
the
That's
pattern.
it. That's
okay.
it.
That's the current
And
pattern.
I plan to do that as long as I can.
And
now,
how- but
people
how-
ask me, if you
Yeah.
can't do that anymore, where would it be?
Yeah.
And the answer is Hawaii.
Yeah. Where
That's
you are,
it.
where we are now.
There we are right now. No question.
And you've been doing that. Now, Hans died about
We have
1995.
been starting to come here 30 years ago. Before I retired, actually.
Okay.
30 years ago, which, well, yeah, that's right. And I didn't retire, actually, until 3 years after that.
Okay.
Or 2 years. That's
Okay.
correct.
So now let's go back
Yeah.
to Cork.
Okay.
So you're in Cork during the war. I know a lot of things happened while you were in Cork. I know you started to become interested
In Cork, yes.
in
yes,
Cork.
yes.
You started to become interested in science.
We stayed in Cork all from 39 to 45.
Okay.
We went to Cork, as we said last time, and when we arrived in Cork, war had broken out.
Right.
So we were in Dublin at that time, but as I already told you last time, through Hans landed a job in Cork, and this Briscoe helped us to remain in Cork to be allowed to
Yeah.
be there and so on.
So how did you actually after the war ended? I know there was an interesting story about how you actually got to the United States.
Yeah, well, I was in
Trans-
Cork first.
Yeah, but
Before.
when you went to the United States.
But that's later. We're in Cork right now.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. That's fine. That's fine.
You want to skip?
Well, I know we're talking. So there's you want
I was
to
from 39 to 45. I was in Cork.
right.
Now, let's talk about that. then,
Okay,
if
go
you
right
want-
ahead,
if
go
you
right
want
ahead.
to. We never thought, of course, that we would stay that long.
Right.
Actually, well, Hans had a job, and I, as I told you already, was teaching French and German to kids in a private school and also privately. I also did a whole bunch of other things at that time. I mean, I stuffed some animals, not teddy bears, but sort of other things.
Right.
I invented or found some stuff that you put on the nylon stocking so that there wouldn't be any run in them.
Right.
And and I took some classes on fashion design, and I did several things. But my major occupation, let's say, was that I went to school at night.
Right.
And these were evening courses, and there were various chemistry courses, and at the end of which I got a diploma in chemical technology or something, which is equivalent to a BS degree.
Okay,
And
okay.
was considered as such because it was done in conjunction with the University College Cork.
Right.
In other words. And Hans at the same time took other courses, and these were evening courses. During the day, I went to the library a lot. At that time, the library was right next door. While we were in Cork, we had 3 different places where we lived, furnished places,
Mm-hmm.
in, well, more or less a center place of Cork. And then, while we were at Cork, on Sundays, we did a lot of bicycling. Not only in the surrounding area, which was good because, we picked a lot of fruits there, blackberries, that sort of fruit.
And we visited some of those places last summer with you.
That was when we went for longer time. We did that. But then
Yeah.
were longer trips.
Right.
At least weekend or
Some of the longer, yeah.
longer thing. But just on a Sunday afternoon, we would go and to a beach place sometime. There were some very nice beaches close to Cork, Youghal and what was the other one called? Something with an S, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were very nice. And also we went to pick blackberries because we were making jam.
Okay.
We made a lot
okay.
of this sort of thing.
Okay, now
Yeah,
you're still
import.
under
Still
under the
import.
age of 30 right now.
Oh, yes.
We only have 67 years to catch up to today. So let's
We won't. Yeah.
no.
Okay.
So let's move on.
We'll
Let's move on
stop.
to getting to the United States.
Okay,
Now I know
okay, okay.
your parents were already in
My
New York.
parents were able to get to 41 before Pearl Harbor, but after, of course, the European War was already on. My parents were able to get, after, as I told you last time already, after a involuntary stopover in the desert in Morocco.
Now their story is interesting too. But
I know it's a different story, but what I'm
yeah.
saying, after that,
Yeah.
in 1941,
Yeah.
my parents got to the United States.
Gotcha.
My father immediately started to be very active in lots of things. He started he started to manufacture ties, and he also started to get a vitamin exhibition sort of thing. But unfortunately, my father died very soon. In 1945, my father died.
Before you had a chance to see him
Before
again.
I had been able to get back
Right,
to the
I remember
United
that.
States.
Right.
We were in Cork until 1945 for the simple reason that we did have affidavits which my parents got for us, but these always are good only for a certain length of time. And then you had to get transport. And during the war, it was impossible to get any transport to go to the United States. So it wasn't until the European War was over in 1945, although the American was still on, of course,
Right.
that we were able to get to the United States in 1945. At that time, we were stateless.
And you flew, right?
We flew. And we flew.
Which was
from-
unusual.
Very unusual.
Yeah.
Everybody else I know, I mean immigrants like us,
Sure.
came by boat to Ellis Island.
Yeah.
Well, we did not. We didn't come to Ellis Island, of course. We flew from Foynes. Now, Foynes is right next door to Shannon, but it's a different place. And the reason was that at that time, the planes were seaplanes.
Oh, yeah.
And they landed there, and actually on our way to the United States, we had two stops, in New Brunswick and in Newfoundland.
Yeah. Probably refueling stops.
I may have mentioned already,
Or to
before
eat.
we ever got on the plane, we were in Foynes for 2 days because we were waiting for the winds to be right. At that time, since clearly we had the lowest possible priority, everybody, including the male, had a priority above us, so we only could fly, or rather, the plane only could fly. It wasn't full. There was plenty of room on the plane. But at that time, at least, these planes who were both leaving and landing at sea
Yeah.
could only go if the winds or anything like that.
It was tricky.
Once we were on the plane, it was very comfortable. We could lie down, sleep, and so on, because there was no, it
Not
was,
like today. tiny
no,
little-
not at all.
yeah.
We were sitting, and then during the night we were lying down. There was plenty of room. We didn't get any food on the plane. No food whatsoever. We did, of course, be fed, but that was when we came down. We came down twice, and that was when we were fed.
So it's true that when you, I know
Yeah.
when you were born
Yeah.
and when you grew up,
Yeah.
your father had money, your family had
Yes,
money.
correct.
But when you and Hans
Yeah, left
showed up
home.
in the United States, you had no money.
$10.
How much was it?
$10.
$10.
Not all in one place. But my mother, but my mother was there. Not that she was rich.
But you
get essentially no money.
Yeah. When you arrived in America.
That's true.
Yeah,
That is true.
Yeah. Okay.
And well, of course, we had some money in Ireland, but I don't know. I don't. Anyway,
Didn't add up to a lot at that point.
No. But we were probably able to transfer. In our luggage, we had exactly $10.
Yeah. Okay.
$10. And foolishly, when we arrived in the United States, when we landed, there was a beautiful buffet set out, but we didn't know that it would have been all for free. We should have. It was free.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
Well, anyway, my mother was there.
Okay, sure.
And also some sort of uncle or whatever he was, George Massan, who at that time lived in he was a cousin of my mother's. Direct, first cousin of my mother.
I recognize that
and
name.
He lived very close to where we eventually lived on 75th Street in
New York.
With his wife. And
your
who
mother
survived him.
But your mother was living in the building that you still currently occupy when you're in New York. That's right?
No.
Oh no, you said 75th or 77.
No.
Okay.
We lived in was not so great. We stayed in a place on 75th Street.
Okay.
One of these, brownstone houses that they still have. And yeah, that's correct.
When did you move to
stayed
72nd
here.
Street?
Well, wait a moment. We moved.
What?
No.
Okay.
I'm incorrect. We did move to 72nd Street right away.
Okay.
My parents, not us, stayed. I mixed it up. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
No, when my parents arrived, they stayed in that place on 75th Street.
By the time you arrived.
When the jewels were stolen and everything. But that is my parents' story, not mine.
Yeah.
When we arrived, we immediately moved to the building where we are now.
Right, okay.
And my parents were already there. The
Okay.
only thing is, we at that time had the apartment on the 7th floor, which is a one-bedroom. The house where I live in now in New York, as you know, has on each floor 4 apartments. On one side there are 2 one-rooms, and on the other side there are 2 two-rooms. 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I mean, actually they call it 3-room and 4. Anyway, they lived, and of course we moved in. My father, as I had said, died in 45. Before he died, he still was able to get to Washington to make some arrangements for our affidavits and everything.
Okay.
But he died in 45, and my mother then continued to live in January. And we arrived the same year.
You and Hans have arrived in New York. You're on 72nd Street. Your mother is there.
My mother picked us up at the airport with us, and we went to the apartment center.
And I imagine that Hans wanted to find work right away.
Yes, of
and
course.
And at what point, and you can talk about that if you want, but at what point did you start continuing your education? Not for a while?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
My mother at that time, previous to that, but that's their story, my mother had been working as a translator for a war office.
Oh, right.
But at that time...
And just sidetracking very briefly, because I love this little detail. Was it your mother-in-law who sewed tea bags?
That's later. Yeah. No, it wasn't really later. It was when they arrived.
Hans's parents.
Hans's parents arrived, never went to New York. Hans's parents arrived in San Francisco.
California,
yeah. Her first job was sewing tea bags.
Yeah, I love
That's
that little,
a separate story.
tidbit.
And his father was what you would call a bellboy or something like that at the hotel.
Okay. So back to your. I'm sorry. Back to your
but
New York.
My mother. Well, my father obviously has died. My mother was still trying to sell some inventory that my father had.
Oh, okay.
And she had a job, of course, but she no longer worked for the War Office, where she was translating mainly Italian, but she worked as a translator at the business of a person who used to be a friend of my father's and also worked with him when they were making ties. But at this point, this person was importing carnauba wax,
Which is?
from, I think, South America somewhere. Wax, W-A-X.
Okay.
Okay, and I immediately also was, I think, going there. Well, anyway, I was doing translations immediately.
Okay.
At a place and also at home. Right away I was doing translations. Mainly, I think, yes, from German. Also, yeah, that's
And who were you working for when you were doing that?
At that time, I was not working, well, it was...
The War Office?
No. Individually for various journals.
Oh, I see.
For different journals.
Okay.
And I think it may have been after, I'm not absolutely sure right now when. Anyway, I got a job in New York, almost, well, very, very soon anyway. And that was in Elizabeth, New Jersey. Well, no, I should have put it this way. I went to the joint who were the people who, the same people originally had sent the boat to bring my parents to the United States from their thing. But, of course, this was a general place where they helped Jewish immigrants
like an intake.
Find jobs or anything like that.
Okay.
And I went to them, and they got me, and at that point, I found out that Neuberg, who I didn't know before that, I didn't know about that, was looking for somebody who did speak German and had a chemistry background.
He was a scientist.
He was a great scientist.
Yeah.
But he was away in Woods Hole for the summer. We arrived in June. He was away for the summer in Woods Hole. So he could not. Eventually, when he came back, I did work for him.
I see.
But before that, somehow I got a job in Elizabeth, New Jersey, where I was, well, I don't even know what I was making. We were making things and we had to put very exact, every day we had to write down exactly everything we did during that day.
But your chemistry background.
It was a chemical thing.
I got you.
They were doing paints.
Okay.
Paints, essentially.
Okay.
And, well, I was working in the laboratory, and every night we had to write it down, and it was locked away in the safe very carefully.
So you went to work for...
That, I went to this place in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And of course I took a train in the morning, and they had a car or something that picked us up at the railway station there, and then...
that was until the fall.
Yes, but while I was at that place, I met a co-worker by the name of Vadis who told me that you could go to school. You know, I had, as you know, had some undergraduate training in Cork. Now, if I wanted to continue my education,
night
then
school?
I could, which I didn't know, go at night at Brooklyn Poly. What was then called Brooklyn, and I took advantage of his advice, and he also told me that the big shot at that place was Hermann Mark, who had been the head of the Chemistry Institute in Vienna, where Hannah, my friend in Boston, had actually studied for about a year, namely from... No, 2 years, from when we graduated in 36 to 38.
Yeah.
And this person was there. And he thought that I had been a student there too. It wasn't entirely true, but I let him believe it, why not? Anyway, he mixed me up with Hannah, with my friend Hannah, who really was. But in any case, I did meet him there, and they recognized my Irish degree or whatever is equivalent to a American BS.
Oh, okay.
Now,
okay.
I was very anxious, since this was a sort of iffy degree. At least if you look for a job, I don't know, the university probably recognized it, but I don't know what the possible employer would have thought about it.
So you wanted to get an
I
American...
was very anxious to get an American degree as soon as possible.
Gotcha.
And I registered for evening classes to get a master's first, and this was in 45. In 47, I had a master's degree from Brooklyn Poly.
Yeah. Brooklyn Poly, by the way, no longer exists as such.
It is now a part of New York University.
Gotcha, okay.
It's now called like Polytechnic Institute of New York at New York University.
Yeah.
Before that, but after I was there, they merged with NYU anyway.
Yeah.
So I started that. I took evening courses at Brooklyn Poly.
And you were working during the day.
I was working during, well, we'll get to that. I was working at Interacademy, well, not yet. I was working in Elizabeth, New Jersey. In the fall, when Neuberg came back from Woods Hole, he wanted me, and I gave up the job voluntarily. I wasn't tired.
Right.
I left the job in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and instead, it was called Apex, by the way. The company in New Jersey was called Apex.
And where were you working? Where was he based when you changed?
He was a consultant, I guess, at Interchemical Corporation.
Which was where?
In 45th Street, New York.
Okay.
So I went there.
Yeah.
As essentially
shorter commute.
Yeah. I went there as his assistant, and I remained there until I went to Columbia. In other words, from 45 to 49, when I had my, I then went to Columbia. So I worked at the Chemical Corporation as his assistant.
Yeah.
So everything I did there, I did really under him.
Yeah.
And he allowed me to do thesis research during what you might call working hours.
Oh, yeah.
Which I did on a subject which was one that he was particularly interested in. Now, Neuberg, all his life, I would say, was particularly interested in anything with carbohydrate sugars. And that's what I worked on there. We had several publications with Neuberg. I had a fairly large number of publications with Neuberg.
Like co-authored, kind of.
Co-authored sort of thing. And also, I had one paper which he is not a co-author on, which was based on my master's thesis called Transosonation. It was really done under his guidance very much, but I just published it in the Archives of Biochemistry, which was, I think, my first publication. I believe it was before any with Neuberg. After that, I had a whole bunch of
So when you say you went to, so when you go to Columbia, you're going to Columbia to be a...
Not yet. Not yet. Not before 49. Not in Columbia before 49.
But in 49...
In 49, I left...
Neuberg.
Yeah. Maybe even before that. No.
Roughly.
Wait a second. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, definitely 49.
So you've been doing a lot since you got to the United States.
Now,
you got a master's degree, you got a PhD in 4 years.
No, in 49 I got the PhD. But before I went to Columbia.
Right.
At that time, I went to school at night, My mother was taking care of what you might call the household. It was evening courses anyway. I went directly from work.
Her health was fine at that point?
At that time, well, not really, not perfect, no.
Yeah.
But good enough to take care of things like that.
Yeah, because
She also helped Hans a lot during that time.
In his business.
Yeah. But at that time, Hans didn't have his own business. At that time, to go back to 45,
yeah.
I got a job after being at Elizabeth, New Jersey for a few months in the fall of the same year. I went to Interchemical Corporation working as Neuberg's assistant. And Neuberg was a consultant for the firm. So I did really whatever he wanted to do, and he was a consultant.
Okay, so let's jump up to 49.
Okay.
So by the time you go to Columbia,
yes,
we'll get to that in a minute. What is Hans doing at that point?
Hans,
4 years
back
later.
to 45, Hans first, no, because he didn't have his own business.
Yeah, no, I know.
In 45, Hans got through, I think, a friend of my father's and so on, a job working on a knitting machine, which he knew very well because he had been designing, as we said before, while we were in Cork, Hans was a designer for a
clothing manufacturer?
No, knitted outerwear. Sweaters.
Gotcha.
And he was a designer, and it did not mean making sketches of sweaters, but it meant making actually sample sweaters on the so-called hand machines.
So when he went to New York,
so when he went to New York, he went on one of these machines, not as a designer,
but to start over again,
as a worker.
Yeah. He started over again.
Work.
Yeah, I got. Yeah.
As I said, as we said, you didn't dare go to the toilet because Hans wasn't the fastest worker anyway. He wasn't that experienced at doing that.
He was nervous.
Before that, he was working, but as a designer, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to design one of these.
But if you're doing piecework,
it does matter.
It does matter
very much.
Yeah.
So he did that for a while, and then he got a job as what was called a production man at a New York firm. As I remember, as a matter of fact, not only was it piecework, he also took to Philadelphia. So not very convenient.
Yeah.
Then, it wasn't for a very long time that happened. Then he got a job as a production man, which in New York, for a firm that was producing knitted outerwear, and eventually he did that sort of thing in his own, and he had his own firm.
Okay.
And I think at the time you were asking me about, he already had his own firm.
Okay, in 40, and he had the.
Well, it was out between Brooklyn. It was in Richmond, the area between Brooklyn and Queens.
Okay. So why don't we stop there?
Yeah.
So you've gone to Columbia, and Hans has got his business going, and he's based in Queens.
Exactly.
Okay,
and
good.
After at Interchemical with Neuberg, I worked mainly about, well, it doesn't really matter at this point. We had some articles in books too and so on, and a patent about separating amino acids and so forth, and something else I did.
I love that purple top. You look good in purple. Where did you get that top?
Got it right here.
Where?
It's the Salvation Army.
I thought that might be the case. It looks great. I was thinking you've been in the United States for almost 70 years. You're obviously an American citizen, North American citizen, United States citizen.
Wasn't 70 years.
Okay. What do you feel more American, more Austrian?
As I said, if I'm in the United States, I feel more European. If I'm in Europe, I feel more American.
Okay.
And I'm not alone in that. Many people say that.
Okay. Now, we left off you went to Columbia in 1949. Now, your career at Columbia is well documented. And I know at some point, it took a while, but you became a full professor. But I want to jump ahead to 1958 when you first went back to Vienna.
Right.
Tell me about that.
Well, in 1958 was the first time I went back because there was an International Congress of Biochemistry at that time. And, well, that was a good pretext at any rate.
Right.
And, well, at that time, we went, it was the first time we went back not only to Vienna, but to Europe altogether. So at that time, we were not only in Vienna, but also other places. Mm-hmm. And after that, of course, as you know, we traveled a lot. But not before. I mean, not to Europe.
And did you go back to, did you see the house where you grew up at that point?
I saw the house from the outside. No, yes, first. And then I did ring the bell and found that they had made 3 apartments out of it. And I believe, I did see a little bit. There was this engineer Gern. He was the man who originally bought it, who was a Sudetendeutscher, which means he was a Nazi, of course. Mm-hmm. And at that time...
You met him?
He was still there in 58.
Yeah.
The present owner told me, later of course, that they bought it in 72.
From him?
From his widow.
Oh, okay. So you mentioned going back to a scientific conference.
We went to a congress at which time, which was very interesting because, well,
You still go to those conferences,
I always go when they are. I go to the connective tissue and their lasting one, so it's a sort of specialized one. That one in 58 was a more general one, the International Congress of Biochemistry.
Okay.
And I still I don't go to all of those anymore.
So
I did for several years.
Where are you going? You're going this summer,
This
correct?
summer I'm going to a specialized one on the lasting in France, in Toulouse. But the international one was every 3 years, and that was, well, after Vienna. After that, we went to, there was one in Japan and one in New York, at which, my Hungarian friends came to visit my laboratory in New York. I had met them before. I met them actually at the 58 one. Okay. And the one in New York was somewhat later.
So you go now.
But I don't go to all of those anymore.
But you go now. Of course, you know people when you go.
Exactly.
And do you know? Do you still understand what they're talking about?
Not
scientific.
Necessarily all of it. Some of it.
Okay.
Some of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Some of it. But there has been an enormous amount of progress made.
Because you retired what year?
I retired in 84, 86. No, wait a second. 86.
86?
86.
Okay.
86. 86,
yeah,
7.
So you've been retired
86,
a while.
7. Yes, of course, yes.
And so,
more than 20
backing
years.
up a little bit, I know I wanted to touch upon your mother because when you came to the United States, your father had died.
Yes.
You were living with your mother, and she got was it a form of MS eventually?
Yes. At that time, she still had a job, which I believe I mentioned the last time we talked.
Right.
And before she was actually 65, she could no longer do it. She had some form of, it was really MS, except that it didn't involve the arms. It involved her legs. She couldn't walk at all. She had to be in a wheelchair all the time.
And she stayed at home.
25. After a while, I mean, she was still working when we arrived, but after a very, very short time, she could no longer do it and retired and then was at home. Now, she could still, as I told you, she held hands quite a bit with the business, typing things, invoices and things like that. And she was perfectly, all right, but she was in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I mentioned it because I was just thinking, you're working full-time, your mother's at home, she becomes increasingly...
Very much so.
She needs more and more help,
Very much so.
And that went on for a long time.
Well, no, almost immediately, Well, very, very soon at least, we did have help from my mother.
Okay.
Till, from in the morning when I left until 5 o'clock or so, then she was alone for a while because I was never home at 5 o'clock. So for 2 hours or so she could stay alone.
Sure.
And when I was on trips, and as we mentioned before, I went on many, many journeys, scientific conferences, and we usually went to scientific conferences in Europe, and then I tacked on a week or so for vacation. And during this time, my mother's help stayed overnight with her.
Okay.
But otherwise, she was just on the day.
So you started traveling more just in general?
Very much after 58.
Yeah.
But as we said, I got to the United States in 45.
Right.
So during those first years, yes, we did travel. We traveled to Mexico, but not to Europe, not that
Yeah,
far.
right.
We did go to Mexico. For instance, we went to Mexico for many, many years, and also then to Florida, Christmas, New Year, that
When
sort of
did, when
thing.
did you, now I know this was a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
later, but
yeah.
when did you first come to Hawaii?
Well,
Roughly.
first we came for our 20th or 25th wedding anniversary, but that was just a trip, just to come here. No intention at that point to stay here forever.
Right.
The second time I came when I happened to be in Seattle, and in Seattle I received the Garvin Medal at that point, in Seattle, in March. It's the American Chemical Society meeting. And the question was, after this, where would it be nice to come for a little bit of a vacation?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's when we came here, and that's when we decided that it would be nice to, buy something here and come again and stay here for longer.
Yeah.
The first time we had no such intention, but we went from one island to the other, flying, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and, the big island, of course, and
Yeah.
Kauai. And
Yeah,
so on.
yeah. So, this might be my favorite part. I want you to tell the story of how you met me, because I only met you
Yeah,
in 2002.
I know.
So
I know.
can you tell that story?
Well, at that time, what year was it?
I think it was 2002. I think it was.
Could be.
Yeah.
Only 70 years had passed since the Anschluss, but in 98, the Austrians decided that they might start some restitution of lost property. Now, amongst the people who had quite a bit of property in Vienna was an aunt of Hans, by the married name of Goldstein. She was married to Bernhard Goldstein, who had a Lilian line one. It was a big firm making bed linen and things like that. And they were very, very well off. And of course, he had long died by then. Now, my lawyer and friend, Stephen Harnick, was trying to locate any relatives of this Goldstein.
Right.
So I knew that one of the brothers, namely not Chris, but his older brother, who was a psychiatrist in Philadelphia at
Right,
the time,
that's right.
had gone to Harvard.
Uh-huh.
And I knew that. I don't know how I knew it, but I did know that in any case.
Yeah.
And probably through Hilde Goldstein, the Hansen's aunt and Chris's grandmother, who was still alive at that time and with whom we were in touch, in contact. Well,
She was still alive. That's
she
how
was
you
still
found out.
alive
Back
at
when
that,
you-
back then.
Yes. Yeah.
Not
Not in '98, but yeah, I got you. I got you.
Not in '98, but before that.
Sure.
So I knew. No, I mean through her possibly I knew that one of the boys had gone to Harvard.
Right.
And my secretary of the time, her husband had gone to Harvard and got the alumni books, so he could find out the name of this Goldstein, who in the meantime have changed his name to Gordon,
Right.
and we therefore found, or rather my lawyer, Stephen Harnick, found Gary
Greg. Yeah.
Gary Gorton, who was in Philadelphia.
Right.
And he
Actually,
was,
Greg. It was Greg.
Oh, it was Greg. Gary
That's
was the other one.
That's
so
right.
the first one we met was not Chris at all. It was Gary and Greg, the
Yes.
two older, Chris's two older, your two older brothers.
Yeah.
And at that time, both of them were in Philadelphia. In the meantime, the other one has gone to Yale, but anyway, then they were. And they came to New York, and actually, Gary, not Greg, he came with two little children, and they had some tickets to the Metropolitan Opera, a matinee, and we had lunch at the Café des Artistes, which doesn't exist anymore either. And then while they were at this opera matinee, we were waiting outside. Gary, I think Greg and I were waiting outside in a cafeteria thing opposite the opera until they came out. Then we walked over to Fifth Avenue, where the two little girls enjoyed the Schwartz toy store very much.
Yeah.
And at that time I had not met Chris.
Right.
And then Chris I met at a later point.
In the fall, I guess. Yeah.
And the fourth boy, Joel, I only met like 2 years ago, I think, when he was visiting Chris in Boston. I was visiting Chris, and so was Joel, the younger.
So
boy.
So
that's when I met Chris, you know. But somehow now I'm closer to Chris than to the others.
So your closest blood relatives, we may have touched upon this earlier,
In Italy.
Are in Italy.
Yeah.
3 children of your mother's
My
brother.
mother had one brother.
Okay.
My father had one sister. The paternal relatives were older than I. In fact, they were exactly the same age as Hans. So I was born in 08 and 10, and Hans was born in 09, so exactly the same age.
Yeah.
But neither, both of them by now are dead, of course. But at the time, both were still alive at that point. Mm-hmm. So I saw them both. I did meet them. But now they're no longer alive. And the one from Australia, well, he was in New Zealand first, and then when his first wife died, he went to Australia and married another childhood acquaintance who is still there and whom I see from time to time in Australia. The other one went to South America and has 5 children, and I hear from them from time to time. But I'm not that close to them, really. My closest relatives would be on the one on my mother's side. My mother had one brother who was 10 years younger than my mother, and besides, boys marry later usually, anyway. Yeah. So by the time he had children, they were substantially younger than I am. So my Italian cousins are much younger than I am.
And they're all, the 3 of them are alive.
The 3 of them are alive and live in Italy, and the 3 of them have each 2 children, and amongst them there are 22 grandchildren as of now. And one of them, at least, hasn't been married that long and has 2 by now and might very well have more. But in any case, the 3 have 22 grandchildren.
So it really,
too many.
The few relatives you have are spread out quite a bit. You have
no, they're not spread out because they're all in Italy.
Well, yeah, but you've got the ones in South America and in Australia.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
and
okay,
Italy.
Okay,
I mean,
okay,
it's,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
for you, it might just be...
In Australia, I have the widow of my cousin.
Okay.
No children.
Okay.
No further. I also...
You have no relatives, direct relatives in the United States?
No.
None.
No,
Zero.
no.
Yeah.
Well, direct relatives. I have... My mother had
blood
a
relative,
second... Yes. My mother had a second cousin. Well, my maternal grandmother and the maternal grandmother of somebody now in the United States were sisters. So it's a much more distant relationship. But I am in touch. She is also dead by now. But her two sons and one daughter I am in touch with in the United States. So they are my blood relatives.
Yeah.
But, well, somewhat more distant. And I do see them usually. One
Okay.
lives in Washington, D.C., has children, of course. And one of them wrote that book last year about return to Naples, his bar mitzvah in Italy.
Okay.
And I do see him regularly
So you.
when I'm in New York.
I mean,
They are my my closest relatives in. I also have a cousin of my mother's who happens, because of extended families, to be was actually my age, but my mother's generation, and she has a daughter who lives in the United States, not in New York, but she did come, and I saw her recently last October,
okay.
because she has two children who are in college in, well, not in New York, but in the surrounding area. So they are blood relatives. And all of them were all of these people were at my 90th birthday party. So you may not remember them, but they were all there, as was a large part of your family.
Yeah, at the 90th. I'm amazed at how you keep track of all of that.
Right.
So you've outlived almost all of your contemporaries.
Correct,
I know there's a couple
correct,
childhood friends that are still.
Yeah. They are my age and they are still alive.
Two at least.
There are two of them. The one in Boston and the one in Florida.
Yeah.
And yes.
So here we are. You're it's in a day or two. You're flying back to New York.
Yeah.
And shortly after you get back
Yes.
to New York, 4 or 5 days, it's going to be your 97th birthday. What are you going to do for your birthday? You have any
Nothing
ideas?
this year. Yes, nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
You'll probably go out to lunch with somebody.
No, I don't think so. No,
No?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll sit next to the telephone and wait for people to call me.
Oh, okay. You have
I celebrate the round ones. I celebrated the 80th and the 90th, and I plan to celebrate the 100th.
Excellent.
But
Excellent.
but the in-between, I don't do anything.
Well, it's been great. Anything
Yeah.
you want to add?
To this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
No. I still go to Europe, but you know that.
Yeah.
I have gone to Europe and still do
And you-
to attend certain meetings
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And
You like your life.
I do like my life, yes, I do. I
Oh,
do.
yeah,
I
yeah.
do, definitely, yes. I have a good life.
You
As
do.
long as I can do it.
Yeah, you know people everywhere.
I do enjoy that, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very true.
Well, good for
And-
you.
Well, you know I was at Columbia for quite a long time.
Yeah,
and
oh,
this
yeah.
it's
There's a
not
whole
big.
story there. of
There's a
course.
lot to
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is, of course, where anything that I may be known for. I did during, say, years at Columbia, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Collagenase, that was all while I was at
Yeah.
Columbia.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking to me.